out of all the Henry David Thoreau archetypes, I think Friedrich is the one who speaks mostly to my heart, probably because he's also, because he can talk German. And I always found when he does include two German words, it has English phrases and English sentences, because I'm like, I can understand everything he says, and it is so cute.
Yes, and it's adorable because in Little Woman he is still trying to study English and he speaks with a broken English, and then he throws these German words here and there. Then in Little Man, the narrator says that he has improved his English a lot, but he still uses some of his favorite German phrases like Schatz and mein Son, and yeah.
Yes, that is true. I also have to say, I think it is also very important for him to actually use this kind of, he has a very open vocabulary, I'd say. And I think it is also very important to note that he didn't come to New York for himself. The reason why he came there was to provide for his nephews. And I think it also shows his very caring nature. Thought just came now to my mind. It's also kind of a parallel to Louisa May Alcott when she wants to provide for her own nephews. And I think that was the reason why she even started writing Little Men. She knew she wanted to write another book to the series, but she was like, okay, I have to provide for my nephews because their father just died. And then she wrote Little Men, and that is just so sweet. And it's also a wonderful parallel to how Friedrich came to New York to provide for his nephews, and when he seeks work so he can provide a home for Joe.
That is true. I hadn't thought about that before. That is a parallel between Louisa May Alcott and Friedrich's character. Her brother-in-law, John Pratt, had died before she started to write Little Man.
I also have to say, whenever I read Little Men, I always cry at the passage when John Brooke dies. But again, it is such a great revelation on how caring Friedrich is, because he is very important in the novel Little Men as well. And I just love him even more for that he's so caring and so sweet. And it's kind of funny. I also wrote that to you. It's kind of, it is normally in fiction, these kind of characters, the one who are very caring, who are very open about their feelings, who work for loved ones, mostly are actually women in these kind of fictions. And I also think it's very important that Friedrich is a male, because he kind of unifies men and women in his character.
Yes, he has very empathic nature that is often considered to be more feminine.
Yes, that's true. But I think for me, I'm not in the age right now, but if there was somebody I'd like to marry or somebody I would fall in love with, that would probably be somebody who's empathetic, who loves me, who respects me. It's of such importance for a person to be empathetic, because then the world can evolve with people like that.
And that was such a big deal for Louisa May Alcott. She found it very important that people did feel sympathy to others, especially those in bad situations, because she came from such a poor background herself.
Definitely. And I also think it's very important that, unlike many fans who actually wanted Joe and Laurie to be together, I think it is perfect that she made Joe and Friedrich an official couple, because in part 1, they are the Hummels, they are German, and besides Beth, I think Joe is the one who cares for them the most. Like I said, they're German, they are poor, and that is the same how Friedrich is. He's German, he's poor, and I think it is also very important that she showed that interracial relationships are important, and that they are just marriages between couples that are the same race.
I think still today you can get some backlash if you are dating someone who is not from the same culture than you are. But in those times, it was even more scandalous. And then we have Amy and Laurie is half Italian, and Italians were not treated with respect in the 19th century America.
I think his Italian side only shows when he has one of his moods, like when he's angry or when he's happy or something like that. Only then do we see that he is Italian. Like, that's not to be a stereotype, but I think it's that people who are from that kind of country, they are very temperamental.
There are some scenes in Little Woman where Laurie mentions how he wants to connect more with his Italian roots, and that I think that's why he's also very artistic. He's interested in music and art and things like that, and to him Italy sort of represents those things. And then I think it has a parallel to Joe, because for Joe, Germany and Goethe and German Romanticism, it really represents sort of high literature, high poetry, theater pieces, and all these great things that come from Germany. So not only is Louisa May Alcott a Germanophile, but Joe is also a Germanophile.
Yes, that is very much true. And I also have to say I love it that both Joe and Louisa May Alcott are very interested in German culture and German language and costumes. I know it came much later, but when you think of World War II, especially, like, for me, it is also very important that a novel at that time portrayed the German culture, German language, etc. as a very good and new thing. Because mostly when I now look at movies or something like that, it is mostly propagandic that all Germans are bad. And I think that is a very sad thing because, I mean, everybody has a good and a bad side inside him or herself. And I think it should be balanced. And I really love that, unlike most people of her time, Louisa May Alcott didn't treat German people with disrespect, but with very much respect, especially because she was a transcendentalist, and transcendentalism is very much inspired by German philosophy that was also stated by Friedrich in the 1994 adaptation. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge the fact that, unlike most people of the time, Louisa May Alcott did love Germany and German people, because diversity is very important and respect is very important.
Yes, I think you are actually the person who might be able to tell about this. Louisa May Alcott loved Goethe, and Goethe is really a big part of German culture in general. How do you see Goethe in Germany? What's his presence?
We've read a few poems of his. My father has, I think, both in Turkish, but still toast, has a copy of it. And I have to say, just newly in the German class, we discussed a poem of Goethe's when he looked at Schiller's skull, because these two were very close. When he looked at Schiller's skull, that's when he wrote the poem. And I have to say, I think Goethe is very important, because he portrays such a positive aspect of German culture. I also have to say, I think it's sad that the teenagers of this time, which I used to be, but I'm not longer right now, I think it's also very sad. Many people in my classes, they dislike poems in general, so they also kind of dislike Goethe's poems, and then I am there. I adore his poems, because first of all, his language is very wonderful for me. And I also have to say, I have a fable for interesting people, so I guess I'll someday even read all of Goethe's novels, or when I find a good biography, I'll also plan on reading one, because I also think that it's very important to know about people who shaped our culture.
What you said about Schiller made me wonder if Schiller was the one who Friedrich was named after in Little Woman, or maybe it was Friedrich Dalmat Fouquet. But I have a feeling it might have been Schiller.
Yeah, me too. Especially because I think that Goethe and Schiller, they are very close. Like I said, he wrote a poem after seeing a skull. I think because they were very good friends, and Louisa May Alcott was such, not a fanatic, but she really, really loved Goethe. That was very clear. I mean, even in work, David, he has novels of Schiller as well as of Goethe. So I think it is more likely that Friedrich is named after Schiller. Yes, that's of course my own theory. But like I said, I also think that besides Goethe, I think Schiller also may have had an impact on Louisa, because in The Robbers, I think it's called, in Schiller's first novel, there's a feminine character called Amalia. I don't know how to pronounce her in English, but she is very sweet, very generous. She is like kind of like Beth, but without the fact that Beth fell in love with somebody. She's very kind and giving and generous, and she only wants the best for everyone. So I also had some parallels between Schiller's work and Louisa's work.
That's really interesting. What was the name of that book?
It was called The Robbers. Like I said, it's the first novel, so I haven't read anything else to him yet, but maybe in another novel of this, we also see how much he's improved, because we wrote that one when he was 17. Suppose he was not allowed to write at that time. I forgot why, but he wasn't allowed. And I think it's funny that he made a story that is close to Louisa May Alcott's Blood and Thunder stories, and the main character, Cole, is very much an archetype of the movement that was around in Germany at that time.
I was just saying that in Rose in Bloom, Mac reads Goethe, but I realized he doesn't read Goethe, he actually reads Henry David Thoreau. In Little Women, there's a moment in part 1 where John translates a poem from Schiller to Meg.
Yes, that is very cute, and it's also very funny because John also knows German, and it's also funny if you think about it. It's kind of like the whole March family is very interested in German culture. Like maybe you don't see much with the others as much as you see with Joe, but I think Meg was also very eager to hear the translation of it, and John was also like, yeah, I'll help you translate it, or I can teach you with German. I think he said that. I'm not sure, but I think he said that, and it was also very sweet.
Yes, I have forgotten about that. I love it. It kind of goes along with my theory that Louisa May Alcott planned Joe's marriage maybe years before she wrote Little Woman, because it does feel like a natural thing to do, to introduce a German character to this family that is really obsessed about everything that comes from Germany.
I have to say, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear like people saying Friedrich was on a shovel because Louisa was forced to marry Joe off is, well, but why, if she was forced, why in the world would Louisa May Alcott write so many things about Joe's and the wife's love for Germany?
I think we can all agree that this really comes from that. The quote that she wrote in her journal was about reuniting with her loved one in the afterlife. So Little Woman is a wish fulfillment.
Yes, that's true. And I also have to say, when like people read it, I think it's also kind of racist of them to state that he was shoveled into the novel, because I mean they know Friedrich is German, and it's almost always he's like they dislike him, especially because he is German. Like even people today are like, meh, she should have stayed single or with Laurie, which, to be honest, I can't stand both of it. I could never stand the thought that Joe might have ended with Laurie or alone, especially after reading the chapters All Alone and Surprises, because in these 2 chapters you can see how lonely Joe is, and then there are people who say she only married Friedrich because Friedrich was invented because Louisa May Alcott was forced to marry him.
I think you're correct about the racism, because I have read so many Louisa May Alcott studies that are like, Joe should have married Laurie, or Joe should have been alone. There usually is a racist undertone when they start to speak about Friedrich's character, and then they do not include these parts in Little Woman where Joe clearly loves everything that comes from Germany, or Louisa May Alcott's adoration to Germany. In Rose in Bloom, there is a Chinese character called Fancy, and he marries an American girl.
Yes, and I also think it's funny that in Rose in Bloom, I think, Fancy married, it is also very important because it shows that well, okay, he was kind of mocked a bit from see in the first book. I think it is both very important because, like, she didn't just completely leave them off in the second book. She included them, Fancy, and she made him marry an American because it shows how inclusive she is. And while I know that many people are like, well, yes, but Louisa May Alcott has something against the Irish, while I can read a bit of it in her novels, we don't know what happened to her that made her hate the Irish people so much, and whether it's true at all.
I think it was a comment at the time to mock the Irish people, unfortunately. I spoke with someone who was working in the Orchard House, and they said that it was really more about the effect of the time period. I don't know. Yeah, Irish people don't really get a good reputation in Little Women because when Amy's limes are thrown to the snow, they are the Irish girls who are picking on her. We don't know.
But it's also kind of funny because Hannah herself is Irish, and Hannah is portrayed in a good light. So I agree with you. I think it is more like the effect of the time because, I mean, if Louisa May Alcott included a Chinese and Asian character in one of her novels, had this person marry an American and it was portrayed as a good thing, then why should she be completely against the Irish if, like, Hannah was portrayed in such a good light?
I think it's a bit the same, like, now there's war going on in Ukraine and Finnish here are boycotting Russian products, but I don't think all Finnish hate Russians because of that, because it's not all Russians who are there or who are the cause of the situation, but it's certain individuals. I think we are onto something here. And the Marches themselves are Irish descendants, so I think it's a lot more complex.
Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
I think it's the same with the Italians, because on one hand, we have Louisa May Alcott who really sort of shows what she considered good qualities of Italians and maybe the less good qualities, but there was lots of hate against Italians at the time period. So it's quite remarkable that Laurie is half Italian in the book, and Germans were also really disliked during this time period in America, in certain circles.
I also think it's very important, like, Mr. Lawrence is actually portrayed like he's a very kind and giving and lovable person, but he also has a flaw that part one we learned that his son-in-law or married an Italian woman, and she was against it. Mrs. March states that he never could like the Italian lady, even though she was very kind and loving and overall a very nice person. And Mr. Lawrence couldn't like her, even though she was very kind to him and all that stuff, simply because he kind of represented, I think, the culture or the society around that time.